Welcome to our Junk Silver Series, Volume 3. This is the third in a series exploring all the silver coins issued by the United States Mint. In this volume, we're diving into the quarters that, besides their silver content, hold historic and sometimes numismatic value. Please sit back, enjoy, hope you learned something, and don't forget, please, to subscribe and like this video. Like dimes, quarters were not minted until 1796. Only 6,146 were minted in that year. After the 1796 mintage was suspended until 1804. Now the 1796 mintage had the small eagle on the back. In 1804, the heraldic eagle was introduced. In 1804, 6,738 were minted. In 1807, 220,643 was minted. Now, this was poorly based on a sketch by Gilbert Stuart of a socialite, Miss William Bingham. Stuart was greatly disappointed at the coin made by an unexperienced engraver, Robert Scott. Only 5 different dates of this quarter was minted. The lowest mintage was in 1796 with 6,146. The highest mintage was in 1807 with 220,643 minted. Total mintage for the Drape Bust quarter was 561,045. These were 89.2% silver, and although not quite junk silver, unless you're finding a really slick one, I tend to dive into the history of the quarters. We will work up to our junk silver here shortly. After a suspension of minting quarters after 1807, the Mint introduced the cap bust quarter in 1815. They ran the cap bust quarter in 1815. Then a fire at the Mint destroyed much of the equipment, and quarters were not minted again until 1818. In fact, the cap bust quarters, they ran from 1815 to 1838, but only 19 dates were actually minted, and they was all minted in Philly. These are 89.24% silver with a reeded edge. Total mintage for these were 5,496,984. The lowest mintage was in 1827 with only 4,000 minted. The highest mintage was in 1835 with 1,952,000 minted. The large with the model was between 1815 and 1828. Then you had the small, no model, in 1821 through 1838. Again, most of these have more numistical value than junk silver. However, if you're getting the really slick ones, the really worn ones, they do qualify as junk silver. Keep your eyes open for these. The seated Libery Quarter, minted from 1838 to 1891. It was the coin of the Civil War. Designed by Christian Golbrecht, it was issued for 53 years, a length that would only be beat by the Washington quarter. The highest mintage of these was in 1876, 17,816,000. The lowest mintage was in 1873, Carson City. No arrows, only 4,000 of these were struck, and only 5 were known to exist. Now, the seated Liberty no model was minted between 1838 and 1865. With the model, 1866 through 1891. These were minted in Philadelphia, New Orleans, San Francisco, and Carson City. 90% silver, 10% copper. The total mintage of these were 155,498,956. Beautiful coin, showing up a lot in junk silver, a lot of wear on some of these. the ones with all wear can fetch a high price. Please take a moment of your time to like and subscribe and leave a comment. And remember, stick around to the end of this video and I'll show you how you can win some free silver to throw in your stack. The Barber Quarter, designed by Charles E. Barber, was minted between 1892 and 1916. It was minted at the Philadelphia, Denver, New Orleans, and San Francisco mints. The total mintage was 264,670,792. Lowest mintage was 1913 San Francisco, which was only 40,000 made. The highest mintage was in 1899, 12,624,000 minted. These are 90% silver and definitely qualify as junk silver for lesser quality coins. The Isabella commemorative coin, a quarter most people's never heard of. It was struck in 1893 only. In 1893, it was designed by Charles E. Barber, based on a sketch by George T. Morgan, the only U.S. commemorative quarter not intended for circulation. Congress authorized this quarter at the request of the Board of Lady Managers. It depicts the Spanish Queen Isabella I of Castile, who sponsored Columbus's voyage to the New World. It was meant to be sold at the World Columbian Exposition. They did not sell well at all as at the $1 asking price, as instead most people bought the Columbian $half at the same price of $1. Certainly a better deal at the time. More than half of these were returned to the mint to be melted down. These are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars today. Certainly not junk silver by any definition, but it falls in the timeline of quarters, and I like the history behind it. There was 40,023 of these minted. 15,809 were returned to the mint to be melted down. These are 90% silver, 10% copper with a reeded edge. If you see one of these, you struck it rich, hang on to it. The standing Libery Quarter was designed by Herman McNeil. It was minted between 1916 and 1930. There are 37 different date and mint combinations. The model for this quarter was the Broadway actress Irene McDowell. There was only 15 years of production of this. They ended it to make way for the Washington Quarter, issued to coincide with the bicentennial anniversary of his death. Total mintage was 226,770,400. Lowest mintage was in 1916 with only 52,000 created. The highest mintage was in 1920 with 27,860,000 created. These are 90% silver, 10% copper, and unless it's an excellent example, these do qualify as junk silver. The Washington Quarter was introduced in 1932 to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the birth of George Washington. It was originally intended to be issued for only a single year, 1932. It became the longest-running design of any coin the U.S. has minted. For our purposes here, we're just going to concentrate on 1932 to 1964, when they were made of 90% silver and 10% copper. They have reeded edges. They were minted at that time in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Now, from 1932 to 1964, just over 3.7 billion were minted. The lowest mintage being the 1936 proof, where only 3,837 were minted. The highest mintage ever was in 1965, where 1,819,717,640 were minted. Now, it was designed by Laura Garden Fraser. The eagle on the back was designed by John Flanagan, and in 1976, Benjamin Shaward designed the crossing of the Delaware. This certainly qualifies as junk silver. Find a lot of these. Coin roll hunting is still a viable option for these. keep your eyes open, pocket the pre-1964 ones.